Good morning and welcome to Missoula Real Estate Today. This is Denny Bedard. Missoula Real Estate Today is presented by Diane Beck of Windermere Real Estate. Diane's been working with buyers and sellers in the Missoula market for over 25 years and shares her insights on the local housing market. Along with her trusted partners, Diane provides complete service for your real estate transaction and brings us guests who provide useful information on industry-related topics and trends. And now, Missoula Real Estate Today on News Talk, KGVO. And thank you, as always, for making Missoula Real Estate Today a part of your weekend here on News Talk KGVO. Thanks to Diane Beck of Windermere Real Estate for being our sponsor. And thanks to Sue Williams for lining up guests. Sue is part of the Diane Beck team, and she lined up Sue Williams this week. How did that happen anyway? You
just knew someone in charge and could get on. I've never had a problem speaking or speaking out, and so this is a good fit for me.
Yes, you've been on once before, but it's been a long time. I'm glad you could come back. You are the listing and sales coordinator with the Beck team at Windermere. What all does a listing and sales coordinator do?
Basically, a listing sales coordinator does everything he or she can to make sure that the agent in charge, who is Diane, who is the rainmaker, is free to do what she does best, and that's prospect for business and secure business. And then I take care of all the little nuts and bolts. I will sign the listing paperwork around. We do so much digitally now. I will make sure it gets in the right places. I will initiate all of the marketing efforts. All the way through to coordinating the closing as it comes out, interface with everybody involved, and act as kind of a liaison between Diane and the seller or the buyer and the other companies that we work with.
And I was mentioning you booked yourself to be on the show. Another one of your duties is you do a wonderful job of getting us guests every week to come on Missoula Real Estate Today. So you were able to book yourself, and a couple weeks ago, you scheduled Brent Wahlberg, part of your gang there at Windermere Real Estate. Brent is our numbers guy.
He is.
And he came out and reviewed the Missoula housing report numbers, and the average home price, Missoula now sitting somewhere around $315,000. Was there anything about that figure, anything about that report that surprised you, or how did it speak to you about the nature of this community?
It didn't really surprise me. It's sort of the nature of the beast that our prices will go up. Traditionally, over several years, decades in fact, National Association of Realtors will keep track of those numbers, right, and they tend to go up. It tends to be a very sound investment. And although there will be dips, ups and downs, in general, investing in real estate is one of the absolute best ways that you can secure some good money, if you will, for a retirement.
Do you think more buyers now are looking at it, Sue, as an investment than maybe in any other time?
I think so. I think with the advent of the internet and the ability to go on and search for so many things, our buyers are becoming more and more sophisticated and more knowledgeable about the market and what they're looking for and what it will take to secure the kind of home that they maybe see themselves in.
Missoula Real Estate Today, presented by Diane Beck of Windermere Real Estate, and our guest, Sue Williams, listing sales coordinator with the Beck team at Windermere. Got to mention coronavirus, of course. How have you been able to, it's so different, and everybody has to approach it a little bit differently, but how have you been conducting your personal business in the last 2 to 3 months?
It really hasn't changed much. Real estate, we were lucky enough to be designated as an essential business, which meant that we could still conduct business, being careful not to work within the protocol parameters that were set for us. And so it really didn't change very much. We still have buyers and continued to have buyers. We still need people who have to sell their house. You know, people don't just sell their house because they decide to change the house that they live in. They get transferred in, they get transferred out, they move up, they move down, they make more money, they make less money. And so that's reflected in the housing market. And so that will always happen, no matter what community you live in, from something as expensive as New York City on down to something that's relatively inexpensive, like one of our smaller towns. And that certainly is the case here in Missoula.
You mentioned the digital aspect. I suppose one thing that's certainly changed a lot is the presentation of how a home is being sold, i.e., there's not as much of the open house and walkthroughs. You really got to rely more on the visual, the video, the photos and things like that. And if you're going to invest a large amount of money in a house, yeah, you kind of you want to at least get in there, especially if you're a serious buyer, get in there and kick the tires a little bit and just get a feel for it. But so much of it now, you rely on visual presentation. We
really do. And interestingly enough, Diane just closed a couple of weeks ago her first ever sold entirely on Zoom and a house to some people who were being transferred into the university from Wisconsin. Both had jobs here. They were not able to visit because of the travel restrictions. Diane took them around to the different houses that she thought they might be interested in. She Zoomed with them inside the house and then walked the areas, drove the areas with her cell phone, pointing outward, taking a video. They bought a house, sight unseen, closed on it. The first time they actually were in the house was the day that it closed. I met them at the house to do their walk-in, and I was kind of holding my breath because we had not done that before. Right. Holding my breath, they come in and they take a look around. They're absolutely silent, and I'm thinking, well, this could be good or bad.
Yeah.
And then finally the woman came into the kitchen where I was standing, and she goes, I just love it.
Ooh.
Yes, Hugh, big Hugh, and it's a great. So that was interesting and nerve-wracking, and as I said, the first time we'd ever done that.
Yeah. Had you been in the house before?
I had not. Diane had been.
Right.
Diane took them through and was able to show where you went from where. A lot of people have a great deal. A lot of agents have a lot of pictures on their listings, and they also have virtual tours. But there is nothing to replace walking through with a camera pointed out, and you turn this way, and here's your dining room, and now we're back in the hall, and then you turn to the left, and here's this room. And so Diane did that with them, and that helped a lot because they got a real feel for what it was. There were no surprises.
And that's the next step in that presentation, really, is that, you can go in and take a bunch of pictures, maybe shoot a little video or something, but if it's not good, it's not quality.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So
it has to be quality.
Yeah. Who do you rely on for that? How do you make sure it's something that you want to present?
Just in quality control, there's in real estate photography is a little different than just taking a picture of you, taking a picture of your office. There's a sweet spot, an angle that you need to make sure that you capture so that you don't see anything odd. And it has to do, for us anyway, with staging our listings, make sure that there's nothing on the counters in the kitchen that will detract so that people are going, oh my goodness, there's a dirty rag. So going through the house like that and making sure that there's quality product for people to look at and to give them a real sense of what is in the house. One of the things I like to do when I photograph the house, which I do quite a bit, is I walk into the house or into a room, say into the kitchen, and I take pictures of the kitchen, but then I turn around and I look and I take a picture of where I came from so that they see where it lies in relation to the rest of the house. Because you could see a picture of a nice kitchen, a nice master, a nice bathroom, and you don't have any idea how that is put together. Yeah. So when I upload the pictures to our MLS, I make sure that they're in a particular order so that you come in the front door, you look at the living room, you look at the dining room, you look at the kitchen, and then immediately you look at the master bedroom because what sells houses are kitchens and master bedrooms. And you put it in an order like that makes sense. You don't just throw up 50 pictures in whatever order you want so that the buyer looking at it thinks, what in the world is that?
When you do it that way, do you get a lot of questions from a prospective buyer about dimensions? Okay, so I can see the kitchen. Looks nice. Looks like there's an island in the middle, but what about its dimensions? Because sometimes it's hard to really get a feel for that if you're just looking at pictures without actually having the numbers in front of you.
That's true. One of the reasons I take so many multiple pictures, especially of the kitchen, is so that you can see it from all angles. Yeah. And you can see that, it looks big from that angle. Not so much from that angle. Occasionally, we will get a buyer asking, or even an agent asking, they've got huge bedroom furniture. Will it fit? And so we'll let them know, they've got a king-size bed. I'm pretty sure yours will fit too. And sometimes then the buyer agent will come out and preview the house just to make sure that the dining room was going to fit their one huge dining room that, 40 people sit at Christmas time. So we get a little bit of that.
So good to have that in your arsenal there. Good to know the answers to those questions. Missoula Real Estate Today, presented by Diane Beck of Windermere Real Estate, and our guest, Sue Williams from the Diane Beck team at Windermere, listing sales coordinator. Besides the video presentation, Sue, the digital, what are some of the other ways you've kind of seen the real estate transactions changing? I don't mean just in the last 2.5 months, but, that's obvious. There's a great big exclamation point beside the last 2.5 months. But in other ways, how do you see transactions changing?
Because we now do so many things digitally and it's so easy to do, people can be in another city and can sign a buy-sell. They can sign just about anything. So that helps quite a bit. Even people that live within the city, a lot of times they're at work. They don't have time to stop by the office. We don't have time to go by their office. And so they will sign it digitally. They can do it on their phone. And that has streamlined things quite a bit. I've been in real estate, and so has Diane, since 1991. And at that time, we did everything on those long legal NCR forms. Press hard, there's 4 copies kind of thing. And you had to do it in person. Yeah. And then we would have to then drive, say we had an offer on a house. We would get them signed. We would then have to drive it over to the listing agent. He would then, or she would, drive it to their buyer's place and then reverse. And we would have to then go back. And so countering was just as difficult. And now we can do it all within, not many minutes at all. And the most surprising people are digitally inclined. My mom is 91 years old. She absolutely loves her cell phone and her iPad. She can sign digitally, no problems at all. And, in fact, she gets irritated when friends her age tell them, I can't text. That's just beyond me. And she goes, yes, you can, and let me show you how.
Yeah. Oh, good for her. We were talking a couple, and we were visiting before we came on the air to do the show, that back in 2001, this sort of pertains to the question I asked about during the coronavirus, how have you been working, whether it's in office or remotely? And you had mentioned to me before we went on the air that back in 2001, I think you said you were actually conducting business. You were working from home. What a weirdo were you 20 years ago, huh?
That's absolutely correct. I was working for a Windermere agent in the greater Seattle area. She worked out of her home office, even though we worked under the umbrella of a larger company. And I worked initially out of her home office. And then she made the decision one day, or asked me, I don't go into the office every day. I don't see any reason why you can't do this from your home office, which was liberating and wonderful. And we did get a lot of pushback. A lot of people were just sure it wouldn't work. How are you going to keep control over your employee?
Yeah.
And her answer, God love her, was, you know what? The answer is she doing the work? And if the work gets done, then obviously she's doing the work. So that I revisited briefly. We did not close our Windermere office. We did have to close it to the public. Yeah. But for 2 weeks, when we were encouraged to, I did work from home again. But here's the thing. Once you have gone from working at home to working in an office, I really found I missed the interaction daily with the staff and other agents and getting out and getting in the sunshine. Whereas before, when I would work, sometimes I didn't see another person all day except my dog.
Yeah. No, I've my work hours here at the radio stations haven't changed much at all. I'm very grateful that, of course, on the broadcast end, essential service, but the broadcast end of it and the sales end of it. And yeah, my workaday duties did not change very much, and I did everything down here because I couldn't see myself as a work at home person.
Right. And sometimes when I was at the Windermere office, it was me and the front staff and John Brower, our managing broker. And then maybe someone would come in and use the copier or something. But it was kind of strange. It was a little empty. But I actually found that I'm not more efficient, but more relaxed at the office because there aren't any distractions. Yeah. And I'm just there, and that's my mindset, and I'm good. So it was 2 weeks, but now I'm back in it, and it's been great.
Good for you. Listing and sales coordinator. You do, I think, act as a liaison, right, between other agents, inspectors, lenders, title reps, everybody.
Yep.
Briefly outline that, each of those.
Well, if we have the listing, then a lot of the onus, if you will, is on the, once it goes under contract, is on the buyer's agent to arrange for inspections and appraisals and that sort of thing. So then in that case, they would say, contact me and say, they want to do the inspection at this time, date, is that all right? And I would then talk to the seller and make sure that was all right. Same with appraisal, make sure that they know the appraisal's coming. Just kind of coordinate everything and keep everything in hand. And and then interface, of course, with escrow and make sure they have all the paperwork they need. Make sure then that the buyer or the seller has an appointment to set up their closing, which has changed quite a bit. We used to meet here in Missoula, the agent and the clients, buyers or sellers, would meet inside the title company to close the deal with an escrow officer. That changed. They were no longer allowed, or we were no longer allowed to go inside the building. So they did something called curbside.
Right.
And they would come out. You'd sit in your car. The agent was not allowed to come, but the escrow officer would come out to the car, sign them. They never got in the car. It's like passing through the paperwork and explaining it to them. They would sign, and then she would take it back in, notarize it, bring them out a copy of what they had just signed.
Can I ask you?
Huge difference.
Sorry to interrupt you here, but can I ask you why the agent is not allowed to come?
Just one more person that was.
Okay.
I mean, we would have to sit in our own car.
All right, health concern then more.
Right.
I thought maybe there was a rule or a regulation there.
The escrow company is the one that set the rules, and remember, a lot of them are nationwide, and so they needed to make sure that they were working within the parameters of the protocols that we were all given. And there would have been no reason for the agent to go. I would have had, or Diane would have had to sit in another car, and we could have waved to them, I suppose. But other than that, the nice thing, though, is for buyers, they don't need what's called a wet signature, which means in person. And so they could actually do everything digitally, download it, maybe have a courtesy signing in another city, which is still an option. And so that worked out really well. The seller does have to actually sign the deed. But other than that, most of it can be done, not electronically, but it can be emailed, downloaded, printed, signed, scanned back in kind of thing.
Yeah. And I suppose, be it buyer or seller, you just have to adapt and accept.
Correct.
This is, this
is how it's happening.
Whatever it takes. That's how we got to do it, right?
Yeah, this is how we're doing it right now. It may not be the way we're going to do it tomorrow, but it's what's going on right now. And everybody was pretty willing to work. No one objected, I should say. We're going to sell the house. We're going to buy the house. We're fine. Yeah. Doesn't matter how that happens.
Missoula Real Estate Today, presented by Diane Beck of Windermere Real Estate. Our guest is Sue Williams of the Diane Beck Team, listing and sales coordinator. We talked when we had Brent Wahlberg on a couple of weeks ago, and Becky Peterson from Windermere a few weeks prior to that. The common thread here, Sue, seems to be that coronavirus, shimonavirus, in terms of multiple offers. Multiple offers are still existing. That really has not changed in this market, has it?
It really hasn't. Missoula has always sort of been a city where there was a lack of housing, considered affordable housing within a certain price range. We've always had a really tight market with regard to that, and that didn't change. In fact, it increased as we had sort of a shortage of listings. And so multiple offers, we've seen them. In fact, we just put one under contract this week. It was Diane's listing, and we had 8 offers, all of which were over the asking price. And it was wonderful for the seller. One of the things that we do when we think we might have a multiple offer situation is not accept offers right away, not look at them. We'll put it in the MLS like on a Friday and say, okay, you have until next Friday to send us an offer. 2 reasons. It gives the seller time to review any offers as they come in, but it also gives the buyer time to take a look at the house, see if they can envision themselves living in that house. They don't feel like they're under any pressure. I need to write an offer right now because I need to have it accepted kind of thing, which many times, frankly, leads to buyer remorse and them sitting home at night thinking, oh, I think I did the wrong thing. This gave them time, and it also gave time for agents to get their buyers in, because if you are starting to take offers right away, your best buyer might be at the lake and they haven't had the opportunity to see the house. So we wanted to make sure that everybody had an opportunity to look at the house, think about the house. We had probably 35 showings within that time frame, and a lot of them came back and took a second, and in one case, even a third look. And so it was a great process, and we felt really good for it. It was an estate situation, which we have dealt with quite a bit. It was a daughter and her two siblings who were handling the estate for her deceased parents and needed to get the house sold. And so, it was really great for them. They really appreciated the fact that we weren't rushing them into signing anything, that they knew they were going to sit down with Diane and look at all of the offers at one time, gave them the opportunity to rank it in order of preference, which is not always the top price. There's so much more that goes into an offer than just the end price. And so it gave them time to consider all those kind of working parts to it and pick the one that met their need. And then they picked a backup offer as well.
Man, did you anticipate my next question? Because that was going to be it. Do you ever get in a situation where, okay, we've got 8 offers on your home, all above what you're asking. So I just assume you want the highest one, right? Doesn't always work that way. So you get into that situation where, well, Sue, what do you think of this family? It's a family of 4. Here's a young couple. They might be here for a long time. Things like that matter, don't they? Well,
they do, and also what matters is are the dates within the buy-sell itself.
Well, of course, sure.
Right. When's the closing date? What is the inspection? What are they looking for? Just different things. What are their contingencies? Do they have contingencies? Are they pre-approved with a lender? A lot of those working parts that we have to think about. And that's what they did. And they, as I said, they picked a nice backup offer. It was their number 2 choice, and they're in backup. And, yeah.
Besides price, I wanted to ask you about younger home buyers right now. Are there things holding back younger home buyers right now, a different mentality as far as long-term commitments, such as buying a home?
We don't see a lot of really young buyers. We do see a lot in their 30s and up, and it seems to be a growing trend that we are getting those buyers. I think that they are more concerned with lifestyle than maybe the size of the house. There was a time when everybody wanted, bigger's better. I need this, I need that, I need that. But now it's more about, okay, if I move into this neighborhood with this house, the house might be a little smaller than what I anticipated, but you know what? I can walk to Grizzly Groceries, or I can get here on a road that will take me right to the university. So a lot of that comes into play with younger buyers. Where is it positioned within the community? What is it close to? How will it look like? How will my life look like? Can I still ride my bike? Is it an area that, I can ride my bike at 9 o'clock and it's fine? Everybody else is riding their bike too. So you get a lot of that with younger buyers.
Does that address the appeal of the townhome style complex where, okay, the square footage maybe isn't as much as I anticipated, and also it's vertical. It's on a couple levels. But now I look at all the other things, some of the things you just mentioned, and does that lend itself to the popularity of those? And sometimes it's priced a little bit better, too.
Sometimes it is priced a little bit better. And I'd say location is huge, too, because sometimes if you want to live in a certain area and the houses there are out of your reach, maybe a townhouse in that area is not out of your reach, and that's a good start. We also find a lot of people who want townhomes are those who don't want to worry about fixing the fence. They don't want to worry about putting on a new roof ever. They don't want to budget for exterior wall repair. They don't want to do landscaping. They just want to live in a house and have it taken care of for them, if you will. And that works. That works too.
Sure. Missoula Real Estate Today, presented by Diane Beck of Windermere Real Estate. Our guest is Sue Williams. Sue is with the Diane Beck team, listing and sales coordinator. And I also want to thank some of Diane's marketing partners that help bring you the show every week on News Talk KGVO. Rob Fleming with Man Mortgage, Miles Link from Opportunity Bank of Montana, and Carol Blodgett from MakeItMissoula.com. Sue, what are some of the challenges to being a listing sales coordinator and some of the biggie rewards?
Some of the challenges are to make sure that they understand that Diane has not pawned me off on them. And a lot of that starts with Diane. She makes it very clear from the very beginning, this is a team effort. We have a team that is going to work for you, and here's how we work. And making or helping them to understand that even though I might be the one on the phone with them, Diane is the one that's driving the whole bus. And I communicate with her. I can't even tell you how many emails and texts we go back day in, day out. And so that's important to know that, you still have Diane's ear and you can call her. I'm in the office right now, so do you want to talk to me? And that's helpful. Most people, once they understand that, they're perfectly fine with it. We don't have many problems with that either. Some of the challenges, because we are so very digital, are for the people that maybe don't have cell phones that they are comfortable texting with, that don't even have emails. And that's fine too. Most of our business is done within the greater Missoula area, and it's not a problem. If someone is sitting at a house in Lolo and needs me to run paperwork out to them, that's perfectly fine. We are good with that. So that's one of the challenges. Other than that, it's just a matter of doing what you do. We have check lists that have been built over the years that are results driven. We do everything in a certain order, just like when you get up in the morning, you don't shower and then, you don't get dressed and then shower, I guess. You do stuff in a certain order. It makes sense. Yeah. And so we do that too. We do stuff in a certain order that makes sense, and we work pretty well together. Yep.
You do so many different things. Anything you like the best? What can't you wait to do when you get to work on a transaction?
I really like it it sounds so hokey to say when a deal comes together, but that's really, really rewarding when someone has been looking for a home, we find them a home, and they're able to move into that. That's very rewarding. That's ultimately why we do what we do. We had this closing it was in the middle of this pandemic, and it was our listing and then someone else's buyers. And I had met them at the house, and we walked through the house with the other agent, and they weren't sure if it was going to work because of some last-minute glitches, but they came to the office later, and when they came in to pick up the keys from me, they met John Brower, who, of course, if you know him, he's just got the charisma that goes on forever, and he's very personable. Anyway, when we were standing there and they left and we couldn't shake their hands, and so we virtual hugged. Right. And then they went outside and they were high-fiving themselves in the parking lot, and John turned to me and he said, "That's why we do it."
Wow. That's terrific. Missoula Real Estate Today, presented by Diane Beck of Windermere Real Estate and Sue Williams with the Beck Team. Any other success stories like that, Sue? Any transactions that come to mind that have been particularly satisfying lately? I know you've already talked about several. The one that was sold completely, physically sight unseen, and multiple offers and things like that. Any other good as we get close to wrapping it up here?
Because Diane has been in the business so long, we now have people that are needing to sell their homes that are either getting ready to go into the next stage of their life, which might be moving somewhere else to live with their family. It might be moving into an assisted living. And unfortunately, many times we have had to deal with estate situations where the one or more of the children are left and they need to sell the house. Maybe they're not even living here and they just need to sell mom or dad's house. That's very rewarding too, because they feel good knowing that we had one that was, the gal was in Bozeman. It was her family home here. And I just felt good knowing that she knew that we were taking care of things on this end. If I needed to go out and meet an inspector, I met an inspector. If I needed to go out and meet somebody else there, I was able to do that for her. And that's very rewarding, knowing that they think they understand that their parents' house is in good hands, and that's important to us.
Excellent. Well said. Sue Williams, Listing and Sales Coordinator with the Beck Team at Windermere Real Estate. Great job. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks as always. It's a pleasure to talk to you.
Thank you for listening to Missoula Real Estate Today. We hope you found this morning's information to be helpful. If you have any suggested topics for any future Missoula Real Estate Today programs or any questions about buying or selling, contact Diane Beck with Windermere Real Estate. Email dianebeck@realtor.com or visit her website, homesinmissoula.com. That's homesinmissoula.com. We'll see you next time on Missoula Real Estate Today.